6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There it is. 11, 12. Now you're ready. All right. Welcome back to the last meeting of the River Oaks Grace, Love, Grace, and Grit Bible Study. Woo! So thank y'all for coming. It's been fun. And I hope y'all have learned a little something. And, you know, you got your money's worth at least. So tonight we're going to talk about how marriage is a sanctifying event. And there's a lot to say about that. But let's pray first. Father in heaven, thank you for tonight. And Lord, I thank you that I'm feeling better. And I pray that would translate into clearer Bible studies and into just better work all around. I pray, Father, that you'd bless tonight. I pray that there would be no misunderstandings, but rather it would be encouraging. In Jesus' name, amen. So this is what I'm worried about when I talk about marriage as a sanctifying event. What that it can easily be mistranslated into is, it's my job to tell you everything you do wrong. And that is not it. It is not your job to tell anybody what they do wrong, especially not your spouse. There are people, Bianca thought that about 6 weeks into our marriage, and I just kind of walked in the door, and she mentioned a couple things, and I remember this vividly. I doubt she does. I said, do you really, I don't think this is the way we should be talking to each other. And she said, but what, aren't we supposed to be iron sharpening iron? And I said, honey, I got iron everywhere I look. I feel like there's a long line of people waiting to tell me what I do wrong. Can I just have one sheath for my knife, just like one place where it's safe and comfortable and I'm not going to get criticized? And she agreed to that. So that was good, and that's why we're still married. And I recommend that for you. The way we talk to our spouses, just the little things, not when you're arguing, not when you are whispering sweet nothings on your pillow, but in between those two times. Okay? The way you just talk to your spouse on a regular day in, day out basis is possibly the most important thing about the health of your marriage, because you have a lot of power. The other person has made themselves vulnerable before you, and so you've got a perspective upon them that no one else has. And when you marry someone, what you do is you give them permission to see you naked, undressed. This is what I am. This is who I am. And when you do that, you're giving someone a pretty awesome power to remake you, to recreate you. And that's what we do with each other. When the person that you care about the most tells you who you are, you believe them. Okay, so if everybody in the world tells me I'm an idiot, and I come home and Bianca tells me that she's so proud of me and I'm so smart, it's really weird. The math doesn't work out, but I believe her and not everybody else, right? Because her opinion is important to me, right? So we see that. You see that in television, whatever, all the time. My favorite example is Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. And Rudolph, he has a red nose, doesn't get to play the reindeer games, all this part. And he he's just sad, right? And his dad's, I mean, it's really an awful thing. I don't know if y'all have ever watched it. But it's, Santa's mean to him. And his dad is mean to him. Donner, I expected better from you. And his dad makes a big plastic rubber nose to cover up his red, shiny nose. And it's just everybody's been cruel to Rudolph his whole life. And then he goes out and he meets Clarice. And Clarice says, I think you're cute. And he goes, I'm cute, I'm cute. And he starts flying. Like he's the first of the reindeer to fly because he believes her and disregards everybody else. And that's kind of, it's an amazing thing. It's a wonderful thing. We see it in the Bible, in the Song of Solomon, the very first chapter, the woman, the princess, is bemoaning her appearance. She's saying, I'm not attractive. Don't look at me. My skin is dark. My brothers make fun of me. And then by the end of the book, short book, she is saying, I am the fairest of the fair. And what you have in between is, 5 or 6 chapters of her fiance, her suitor, and then her husband telling her how beautiful she is. And now she believes him. She doesn't believe her brother. She doesn't even believe herself. She believes him. And that's the power we have. We have the power to remake each other. And so the way you talk to each other actually forms the person you're married to. And it can be a powerful and a beautiful thing, and it can be a powerful and a dangerous thing, right? Especially for those of us who grew up with brothers or sisters, or just if any of you happen the misfortune of being a guy, the way we talk to each other is very critical. That's just kind of male friendship. We make sure you know everything that's wrong with you. And we, nickname you for your worst habits, Stinky and Pee-wee and, thank you. That's exactly the thing I was insecure about. Let's make that my nickname. That'd be great. And if you bring that into your marriage, you'll soon find out that that's not the way a husband should talk to his wife, right? And you think you're shooting a BB gun. You think you're shooting a squirt gun. You're telling her, I have a friend whose wife got his wife was expecting, and so she had to go out and buy some pregnant woman clothes and maternity. That's a better word. Maternity clothes, and she bought then this was just the fashion in the 90s. Bianca had one. Everybody had one who was pregnant. It's like a denim shirt with a black kind of felt collar. You remember those? And so she walks in. She goes, "Oh, what do you think of my new shirt?" And he said, "Are you trying out to be a clown?" And he did. He just said it without even looking at her. And he looked up, and she was bawling. It was not me, but a friend. And he soon realized, oh, that's not the way women talk to each other. Guys call each other baldy and stuff all the time, right? You can call my whole stomach fluffy. So you just learn that, the way Tim Keller describes it is you think you're holding a water gun, you're just teasing, and you look up and you see a pair of shoes with smoke coming out of them. It's like a bazooka. You just blew somebody away. And you didn't mean to. You really didn't mean to. But your spouse believes what you tell them. Because they've invested you with they have invested you with their trust, and so they trust what you tell them. We need to learn to use that in very positive ways. The number of if someone were keeping account, what they say is it takes 20 affirmations to undo one criticism, I can't imagine that that's true. I feel like we would all be like buried by now under criticism. But but it sounds true-ish, and it does take a lot of positive talk to earn someone's trust when you've lost it. And so that's kind of what we want to talk about tonight: how to do that, how not to do that, and there's that. So I'm going to read to you from. Sorry. Well, I thought I had the text written down here. Don't. Never mind. So, let me read to you from Ephesians 5. I need to read that. Can't get through a whole Bible study on marriage without reading Ephesians 5. You get arrested. You know what Ephesians 6 says? That's awesome. I found this yesterday. This is when Paul's talking to the bondservants. He said, "Render service with a good will as to the Lord and not to men, knowing that whatever good anyone does, this he will receive back from the Lord, whether he is a bondservant or is free." Isn't that awesome? Like, just any good thing you do, God sees it. Nobody else sees it, but God sees it. And he's going to bless you for it. He's not missing a thing. I just love that. I love that idea. And I love the fact that it's true. I love the fact that we have a God like that. I was driving down 101st yesterday, and there was this metal bar in the street. I don't know why. Piece of, it was like this long. I was like, that's weird. But I, threw the car in park and picked it up because it looked like it was just waiting there to cut somebody's tire, and they didn't want that to happen. So, took me like 1 second. No big deal. And but then I thought later, I was like, nobody saw me do that, but Jesus saw it. And in 100 years, he's going to walk up to me and go, "I saw you pick up that bar. I appreciate you doing that. 5 people would have cut their tires on that if you hadn't picked it up. Thank you." Isn't that just an amazing thought? Like our God sees every act like that. Anyway, that's free. That has nothing to do with marriage, but pretend like it does. Okay. Ephesians 5. Wives, submit to your own husbands as to the Lord. For the husband is the head of the wife, even as Christ is the head of the church, his body, and is himself its Savior. Now, as the church submits to Christ, so also wives should submit in everything to their husbands. Husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her, that he might sanctify her, having cleansed her by the washing of water with the word, so that he might present the church to himself in splendor, without spot or wrinkle or any such thing, that she might be holy and without blemish. In the same way, husbands should love their wives as their own bodies. He who loves his wife loves himself. For no one ever hated his own flesh, but nourishes it and cherishes it, just as Christ does the church, because we are members of his body. Therefore, a man shall leave his father and mother and hold fast to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh. This mystery is profound, and I'm saying that it refers to Christ and the church. However, let each one of you love his wife as himself, and let the wife see that she respects her husband. So what we see here is this process that we've already talked about going on, right? Where you start out 2 separate people, and you keep moving towards each other until ideally you're so united in thought and purpose and interests and everything else that you almost cover each other up. You've become one person. The 2 shall become one. And in the one, there's a perfect economy of love and tenderness and delight and respect and mutual submission and grace and glorifying each other, smiling on each other, taking delight in each other. But that takes a long time. It doesn't happen overnight. Supposedly, sociologists, I've never actually read a sociologist, but I've heard that sociologists say that it takes 10 years to begin to think like a married couple. to even kind of figure out how my spouse thinks. And it takes, most marriages continue to get better for the first 35 years. I don't know what happens at year 35, but most couples, when they were interviewing these couples that were married for 50 years or longer, not all of them, but the majority of them said year 35 was the best. Isn't that funny? Like, I guess you just get old after that point. And because we're coming up on it, and I'm old, and you have years where you're sick or whatever. So that's what we're doing. And the way we do that is we begin to actively see each other, especially, Paul says, the man should see the wife as an extension of his own body. What does that mean? Well, your relationship with your body's weird. It's you, but you can act on it, right? And you do act on it, hopefully, daily. You keep your hygiene, you wash it, you brush your teeth, you clean out from under your nails. You present yourself clean and without blemish, right? You do that every day. Well, in the same way, we're to love our wives and treat them that way. Now, I don't know if you've ever had somebody else clean out from under your nails, but you do that very gently and with great respect. It's not harsh. It's not, you're not touching me, but, that's just a weird thought, actually. Let's just get away from that. But we groom each other, and that takes two things. One, that takes access. In order to do that, I have to be willing to open myself up to you. I have to be willing to listen to you. And I think it's wise to have specific times when you make yourself do that, especially if you're as skilled at self-protection as I am. If I don't ask, what could we have done better this week? What could I have done better this week? The question I asked Bianca at lunch has morphed over the years, but it's still, I was originally assigned by my counselor, I had to ask her, it's a very dumb question, how did you experience me this week? That's just not how I talk, right? But I would do it, and I would buckle in and get ready. That's giving her access, and I actually had to coax it out of her, like, no, really, I want to know. And so now, now it's different. Now it's like, well, how did I do this week? Or sometimes I'll think about specific, arguments that we had, and I'll say, how could I have said that better? Like, how could we have had that conversation without it devolving so quickly? If you think you're going to get better at this stuff without talking about it, I don't know what you think is going to happen. Are you hoping the marriage genie is going to come into your bedroom at night and go, don't do that? You got to just ask each other, like, okay, I needed to get this conversation going. We needed to decide, where we were going to buy a water heater. That's what we did today. And it devolved into a fight because I at least wanted to get an estimate on on putting in a brand new gas line, and you just wanted to get it done. Like, how could we have had this conversation without it turning into a fight? That's not what happened, by the way. We did not fight over a water heater. I just want you to know that. So you just let your wife get her way, and that's fine. Not true. You did. That's true. She asked me at lunch how much I really wanted a tankless water heater. And I said, probably not enough to pay for it. First thing is you have to give the other person access, open yourself up. And the second thing you have to do is be honest, be clear and kind and gentle, but honest. And let somebody know how they affect you. You can't live in deceit. It's just not a solid ground for a relationship to be built upon. So that's the first thing. We cleanse each other by revealing ourselves to each other, by giving each other access. Think of it like going to a Korean spa. Maybe not. But supposedly they just get a scouring pad and scrub every inch of your body. And it's not. That's not a great illustration. Think of it like getting a haircut. You give the barber access. Getting a shave. Like the barber has a razor, a very sharp razor, right here on my throat, and I'm giving him access. I have to give him access, but there's a covenant, an unspoken covenant between a man and his barber. I'm going to give you access to my Adam's apple. You're not going to cut it off, right? You're going to be very gentle with me. So that's the first step. Second step is recreating your spouse. I've already kind of talked about that a little bit. But just to reiterate, our relationships are powerful. Our spouse makes us into the person that we see ourselves. And it's a daily, continual drip of, And what I mean by that is you can't lie, So, when someone calls you out on something, you're like, oh, no, I think you're wonderful. Like, well, what you've been saying to me for the last 5 hours kind of doesn't make me think that. And I don't know how to hammer this enough. What am I trying to say, Bianca? Just don't be mean. I don't know how... maybe just before you say something, just think to yourself, would I say this to anybody else? Would I make fun of anybody else's clothes? Would I complain about anybody else, being too cheap or too, what's the other opposite, prodigal with your money? Just, especially like when you're out in public and people feel like, spouses sometimes are like 2-year-olds. Like a 2-year-old knows when he's in public. We'll say a 4-year-old. 4-year-olds really are smart. Like they know the rules. They know they will not get spanked at Kmart or Walmart, right? And so they'll just wait till they get in the middle of Target and throw the biggest fit because they know that they're safe. When I was baptizing Brent and Sarah Corbin's third, their oldest, just got up on the stage and she knew she was safe. And she started holding her skirt up like this and turning circles and laid down on the stage and put her chin up on her hands. And like she just knew, like she was performing and there was nothing mommy was going to do to me about that. And I feel like sometimes spouses are like that. They get out in public and they know that they're not going to get any pushback. And so they start just picking at each other. And I'm actually saying that to give them the benefit of the doubt. Surely you don't talk to each other like that all the time. But just that little nitpicking. I'm just kidding. That is like, there's a great proverb about that. Basically, it's a wicked person who says something and then just adds on, I'm kidding. It's very, very painful. And the person that you are doing it to believes you. So, again, just be nice. Third way we recreate each other is not only by speaking into existence and being gentle and vulnerable and honest, but it's by reenacting the gospel. You live out the gospel daily when you live with somebody, right? Because you're trying to become this. And that means pretty much everything you do is a compromise or a conflict, usually conflict. And reenacting the gospel means that there's going to be an offended party. Usually there's 2 offended parties, but to make it easier, we'll say it's 1. You've got somebody who has been offended and somebody who's been offending. And you have somebody who has the task of forgiveness, and you have somebody who has the task of repentance. And if somebody doesn't go first, then you just separate and go your happy ways, right? Those are the only options. The third option is to live together and not talk, and that's the deal a lot of Christians make until about year 15, and then they ditch it. But what we want to have happen is a daily experience of offering forgiveness. You know, just saying, you can usually, a lot of people, I do, you completely ignore what just happened and you just start talking again, knowing that you're going to get around to it at some point. And at some point, after the offended party, typically it's the offended party, moves toward the offender because this person's all embarrassed and ashamed, and lets them know, hey, we're still married. It's okay. Did you have a hard day? What's going on? Great. If you just have no idea how to do this, a good question it just start out with is everything all right? You know, like, hey, I didn't expect to get hit with a bazooka when I asked you what you've been doing all day. That's not a good question. Good response. Just a good, nice, broad, is everything okay? You know, everything all right? And that gives your whoever you're in the conflict with an opportunity to go, actually, it's not. And it could be that I had a really bad day at work. It could be that I got a ticket on the way home. And it could be that I'm just sick and tired of you tracking mud in every day. And I've told you 20 times and you won't stop doing it. And I know you're not going to mop the floor. So I need you to either mop the floor or leave your shoes at the door, one or the other. You know, but you're opening the door. You're saying, okay, what is everything okay? Now, you know, how you respond to that's up to you, but it's a good, very wise time to begin to move toward each other. And as you do that time and again over the small things, then it becomes bigger and bigger things, and you win each other's trust and you win each other's grace. And as grace is won, you trust each other more for bigger and bigger grace. And I talked about this last week with the spirals that go up, right? And if you serve me in the small things, then I begin to trust you more to serve you in the big things. And so, you want to start down here with, not throwing your towel on the floor and end up here with, okay, I'll let you spend my retirement. I trust you. Or, buy you that car, whatever. So I'm going to stop there and just kind of give time for questions. And I'm sorry, my wrist has been going crazy. So I asked Bianca if she wanted to come and sit with me. Would y'all like for Bianca to answer questions as well? Yes, you do. So Bianca, come on down. I'm going to grab a couple of chairs. You don't want to sit? I want to sit. So you can text this number, and it's anonymous, or you can just raise your hand. However you want to do it. I've already got one. So let's see what you want to know. Yep, this is the final week. This is it. You ask questions about anything you want to ask. Tim, can you turn on the handheld so Bianca and I can both talk, and it can be heard online? Sorry, I got to find it. So I understand how we are to talk to our spouses critically. How do we deal with situations where they may need to be corrected? I think I got the answer. Yeah. What's your favorite way of correcting me, dear? I mean, again, the main thing is just be nice. And you can assume, I don't mean to make that trite, but, there's 2 or 3 ways to do things, You can be like, what are you doing wearing my coat? Or, hey, honey, it's cold outside, and that's the only coat I have. Can you get another one? Same basic That's not my code, by the way. The same basic content getting communicated. And sometimes you need to even ask permission. You got to be wise. Is this the right time of day? Is this the right time of the week? Is it the right time of the year? And then even say, hey, can I bring up something that might be sensitive? It's okay to let her get prepared. And then what you want to do is you want to make your criticisms as objective as you can. So to use the example I've used a million times, you can say, hey, it's really rude of you to throw towels on the floor. Or you can say, when you throw your towels on the floor, it makes me feel like you don't appreciate, that I think it's important to have a clean bedroom. Now, one of them I can argue about all day long. Like, we can have an argument about whether or not it's rude to do this. What does the word rude mean? Well, there's got to be an intentionality to rude. You're also rude, but I can't argue for a second about whether or not it made you feel something. Right? I mean, if you say, I don't feel like we're communicating, I can't, with any bit of reason, say, no, we're communicating fine. Like, that's just not how it works. If the other person doesn't think you're communicating, you're not communicating. It's a two-way street. So that's my advice. Be wise about the time. Be kind and gentle with your tone. And correct with, don't talk about the other person. Don't generalize. Don't absolutize. You never do such and such. They don't do it never. They occasionally do say I love you or whatever it is you want. So, would you add anything to that?
Yeah, I would say, check, is this on?
You're on.
I would say also, I just want to reiterate what you said before about the nibbling and the critical spirit. I work with people a lot, and sometimes I train couples, and I'm often amazed at how couples speak to each other in front of me. And it's often very small jabs, just like a little eh. And I can tell the other person is affected by it and also embarrassed. Just watch how you speak. If you're finding yourself being resentful over something that's going on, pay attention to that and think about it. What's going on? And make a note to not jab about it, but to actually talk about it. Does that make sense?
We conflict avoiders. We'd rather jab.
I don't like conflict at all. Yeah. So we don't fight a whole lot. And I think I've admitted that before, that it's not very healthy to never conflict.
I mean, it's okay.
Yeah, I want to be right here. This is my favorite spot.
It's okay to not.
Right here. Yeah.
Okay. Next. Anything else? A hand? Or that's the only one I've been texted, so I've got more material, I guess, but I'd rather not go through it. Any other questions? Yes. Well, that can be problematic too, but anyway. Okay, so the question for those online is, they've been told that if they're not fighting, they're not healthy, but they feel like they're healthy. It's just really dangerous to to take your pattern of marriage and stamp it on anybody else, you know. And that goes for everything. It goes for, you know, some couples sit down together to balance the checkbook and make the budget. And some couples just have one person do it and the other person trusts them. And when they have questions, they talk it out. That's the way we do it. And, you know, and there's not a right way to do that. There's not, like, the Bible doesn't say have 3 arguments a week. And, you know, the Bible doesn't say have sex 2.5 times a week, or I never figured out what the half was. So, you know, if you're I mean, the bottom line is, if you're both happy, then you're both happy. Now, I just think you have to give each other an honest time, and, you know, open yourself up and have an honest time occasionally. Doesn't have to be one a week. I start to stamp my things on you, but you know, just to tell me if you're not happy. And when, you know, when someone asks and says, "Hey, what could I?" There's a lot of ways to answer these questions, and ask these questions. You know, you can say, like, "What could I do better?" Or, "What do you wish I'd work on?" There's all kinds of ways, you know, be creative. But if someone asks you, you know, "What can I do better?" and there's something that's really driving you crazy, but you don't say anything about it, you've made the choice to just swallow it. Just take it. And so, you know, don't be passive aggressive about it and be mean about it. Just take it. So, all right. Somebody called me. That was funny. Anything else? Yes, Austin Zellner. Well, you better be on the same page. You'll find out real quick if you're not. Tim Keller says that marriage is like a 5-ton truck driving over a bridge. You're going to find out where the structural flaws are really quick. And a baby's like a 40-ton tank. I don't know. I mean, it's just...
Maybe if we have a baby, things will calm down.
Maybe that'll make it better, right?
Name that show.
You know, I think ideally what you're going to do is develop good habits while you don't have kids. And then, gosh, it's so long ago. When you have infants, especially if you have 2, I thought that the greatest stress on our marriage was when we had 2, because we were just both tired all the time. And then, you know, once they get older, it gets easier. I'm trying to think of really how they affect the marriage. What they do, what children do is make your life really small, especially when you have infants. Like, you basically don't get out of the house much. And so if you don't like each other, that's really problematic. You find out really fast. And then the children themselves, there's just this steady growth, I feel like, from being very, very labor intensive, like every second of the day they depend on you, till, you know, they're 20 and you're wishing they would text you. You know, it's like, yeah, so I'm kind of stuck with all this free time. And then, but the opposite is true of money. Like, infants don't really cost that much. College kids cost a ton. So that changes. What do you think the effects on marriage were?
I mean, I will say what you did correctly. Back in the day when I had 4 kids under 6. And this may have been selfish, but I think it worked out. You know, I mean, Ricky wanted time alone with me. And so he didn't say, get a babysitter so we can have a date. He got a babysitter. That was just one more thing I didn't have to do. And that was a really smart thing, because we would go. We did frequently go on dates, even though we had a lot of children and lots of. It's just stressful. Sometimes you just have to hang on and get through it, right? I mean, especially when they're little, you just got to hang on.
Yeah. I think also mommy and daddy guilt cause a lot of problems for married couples, because there's this feeling that I'm just not. I don't know what it is about a kid, man, but they make you feel guilty so fast. And it's really easy to be like, I'm just not spending enough time with them. And they're fine. It's okay if you miss a baseball game. It really is. I know that's a heresy in Tulsa, but I missed a lot of baseball games, and my kids did not care a bit. I asked them, I was like, is it okay I missed? Yeah, I don't care. You can, but you need, I needed the time with Bianca. It was just important to me. And so we made it. And about every 3 months, we would, go out of town for a weekend, because I just needed that. So I think that's when they're young. You also have to agree on I know Bianca talked about kind of boundaries and agreeing on job descriptions and that kind of thing. You really have to agree when it comes to kids, especially about discipline. My mom was the only one who ever disciplined me. My dad spanked me twice. It was in the same night for the same thing. We got an Avon bottle. I remember it. I don't know where the bottle is, or I used to back when I had a house. That's sad. That was a sad sentence. But anyways, a bottle, and I poured it out on the couch. I poured the entire bottle of perfume out on the couch. I wanted to make the couch smell pretty. And Dad woke up and saw what I'd done and spanked me. And he sat back down in his chair. And the more he smelled it, the madder he got. So he got up and spanked me again. And only reason I remember this is my mom told me. And it made Mom so mad. Like, she almost left him. Like, she was furious, that he would do that. And she did. She walked. That was only time I ever remember her just walking off. So you need to agree. All that to say, well, that says a lot, actually, but I don't know why I told that story. Agree. You need to agree about whose responsibility it is to, discipline. And there's just a lot more room to fight in that stage.
We didn't do all that right either.
No.
Either.
And then when you're an empty nester, it's really weird. Because typically, if you follow the typical pattern, you're making more money than ever, and you don't have any kids to spend it on. And so it's like, oh, well, that's crazy. And you have all this time, and you're going to find out whether you like each other. That's kind of the Christian 7-year itch, is that stage when the kids are independent, not necessarily out of the house, but independent. Because a lot of times what will happen is in the typical Christian, idealized home that I got a lot of problems with. The mom spends all her time with the kids. Dad spends all his time at work. They kind of get their identity from two separate things. And now the kids are gone, and they try to come back together. And, the dad's kind of glad the kids are gone. One less stress in the house. Mom's totally lost her identity because she didn't find it independently. And you just start doing that. If you don't like each other, you just start doing that really bad. So that's why the dating while you have kids and the time together is very important, because then if you do like each other, then you get to go home and watch TV with your best friend. And that's fun. So does that answer your question at all? I feel like you were looking for something specific, and I just shotgunned around it. So. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Tara, but that is either serious jealousy, which I'm not going to judge. Heaven forbid I judge the fair sex, or that was just self-inflicted. And because typically people don't even think about you enough. It's like, okay, I'm so obsessed with myself, I don't even think about other people enough to judge them. But yeah, what I'm going to say about that. Who cares? It's like I learned real early. As a minister, my schedule is weird, and I take time off in the middle of the day so I can work at night and blah blah blah. And my job for years was hanging out on campus with college students, and every month or so, some of these guys worked really hard, and they would make fun of me. They'd be like, "Oh, it must be nice," and I stopped getting defensive about it and just started embracing it. As a matter of fact, it is. It's really nice. Great job if you can get it. Can't have mine. I'm keeping it. So, when people say it must be nice, go, it really was. So, maybe not. I don't know. I'll let you decide that. We got 9 more minutes. We can end up early, or you can ask your questions. I'm not getting any from my online guests. Oh, here we go. Here's one from online. Can you talk more about the co-parenting aspect of marriage? How do you approach when you find differences in how you parent? Again, this is a situation where you need to have dealt with it. You need to have learned how to conflict and talk things out before you have kids, because you're going to have serious and intense conversations when you have kids. And trying to decide what is a spankable offense, or are we going to spank our children before they're 4, or are we going to spank them between the ages of 4 and 8, or are we ever going to spank them? Those conversations get intense. Are we going to homeschool? Are we going to Christian school? Are we going to classical school? Are we going to do Christian classical school? Are we going to do Christian classical homeschool? Those are all pretty intense conversations, because you love your kids so much, you just feel like you're about to die. And everything having to do with the first one especially. The first one's kind of like an overcooked pancake, You're so afraid to flip it early that you wait way too long to flip it. That's kind of the way the first one is. You just overdo everything. I can't really tell you the answer. There is not an answer to any of the things I just raised. I know parents who never spanked their kids, and their kids seem fine. The adults they turned into seem fine. I spanked my kids. I spanked my first 2 all the time. Way too much. I didn't spank the second 2 nearly enough. And they all seem fine. They taking one thing with another. They're okay. So there's not a biblical answer to a lot of really hard questions. And that's just something you have to live with and learn how to talk through. There's not a biblical, the Bible doesn't say the mom has to stay home with the kids. The Bible doesn't say you have to homeschool. I know there are people out there who think it does. It doesn't. So you just have to kind of work through that with respect and love. And kindness.
And creativity.
And creativity. What do you mean?
Use wisdom. That's what wisdom is. Wisdom is creative problem solving.
Can you think
based on principles of the Bible. No, of course I can't think of an example. But that's what wisdom is, right? It's like solving our problems creatively in a way that makes sense to me as my personality and your personality, in a way that works for us. Like what he said to you guys. You guys have a way of relating. That's only you guys. And we have a way of relating that's only us. So solve your problems based on you and not everybody else.
Yeah. And as much as you can, this just came to me when she was talking about creativity, and I think it's important. Like, learn from yourself, like, what a year looks like. And what I mean by that is, like, when I was a campus minister, it was a very broken up year. Like, I knew exactly what it was going to be. So in the summer, honestly, I worked about 4 to 5 hours a day because I knew what was coming, right? Especially when I was at Mississippi State, and it was a big campus and a ton of students. And as soon as the students showed up, I was basically gone from 8 in the morning till 10:30 at night sometimes. And I knew that we were going to have an argument every September. And she was going to say, I don't see you enough. And I was going to say, I know, remember when I was coming home every day at 1? That was kind of saving up hours for this, And it's going to get better, And then we had this big, huge retreat. It was a nationwide retreat called Summer Conference. And it was at the beach. And she really wanted to go, which is great. She was invited. And our kids wanted to go, or she wanted to bring the kids sometimes, which is fine. They were invited. It was a free week at the beach, which sounds nice. But I had to tell her, I have to work that week, right? I'm not going to help you get lunch. I'm not going to help you take the kids to the beach. I'm not going to be there to, put them to bed at night. Like, that's a work week for me. I'm going to work every hour that I'm awake because I'm about to essentially go on a 3-month vacation. And, like saying that clearly just really helped. Like setting expectations, learning from the past. As you said, your choices are you can be without me for a week in Mississippi or you can be without me for a week on the beach. Where would you rather be without me? She said the beach, and it ended up being great. But just anticipating and being honest and setting expectations is huge. Was that a question? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I've done three different counselors. Yeah. I've been very lucky. I thought all 3 of ours were beneficial. The first one was a little too confrontational, but it was helpful at the time. The second one and the third one, I was just so desperate for help that I would have listened to anything. Counseling is like music. Some people like jazz and some people don't. And you can't convince somebody to like jazz who doesn't. And you can't convince somebody who likes jazz that it's just crazy randomness and you really shouldn't like that. And so I would say after 2 or 3 visits, you kind of know whether this counselor is helpful or not. And if they're not, then you don't need to waste money on it. And if they are, you really need to persist until, I don't know. I mean, I'm a pretty intuitive person. You just kind of know when you're done. I don't know what else to say. You just kind of look at each other and go, we're done. Jim Cofield. Well, that was more me.
Oh, okay.
Rod.
Yeah.
I've had 3. She's had 2. And she hated going to the second one because he was so insightful. And so I had to make her, like I would call her. She would be avoiding the appointment. I'm like, we're on the phone with Jim right now. Get here. That actually happened. She was teaching a Bible study in this room. I had scheduled the counseling appointment in my office. We were Skyping for 1 minute after the Bible study ended. And I looked at my phone, and she was driving home. I said, no. I called her. I said, no. Get back. So, true or false?
100% true.
Yeah, I don't. Counseling is helpful if you'll let it be. You have to go in very non-defensive and give somebody access and be vulnerable, But I think it's necessary when you're in a rut. When you find yourself having the same argument over and over, and everybody does that, right? We all get into those points where, hey, we've had this same argument 10 times, and it's going to come to the same resolution 10 times. Then go and have the argument in front of somebody. That's what a counselor is. A counselor is just an umpire, watching you fight and going, how could you say that better? Actually, I have a friend, John Stone, who thinks that the first marriage counselor was God in the Garden of Eden when he tried to bring Adam and Eve back together. I don't know. Pretty iffy application there. But, it works for him. But he's had a lot of counselors. His marriage was fireworks, man, every time they were together. They did everything wrong. And they're still married after 40 years. So there you go. We're coming up on, 34? Okay. All right, let's not do math. All right, we're done unless anybody else? Let me check my phone one last time. Do you want anybody to be done? Bianca's whispering we're done. We are done. Let me pray for you. Father, thank you. This has been a fun study, fun 6 weeks together. I hope anything I said that was wrong or would have led people astray will be forgotten quickly, and I pray that anything helpful would be remembered for a long time. And Lord, I pray that we would truly learn how to reenact the gospel, how love goes first, how you didn't wait for us to repent. You came after us and loved us into repenting. And I pray that we would learn to show grace to each other like that, loving each other into repenting. I pray in Jesus' name, amen.